So thank you. Um, I call this reflections in that this is not a lecture. I don't have a plan. I hope to intrigue you. I hope to suggest some strange and powerful places that you might want to go to. I probably will make some suggestions about how you might get there. But at the end of the day and all of the time, it starts with you, it ends with you, it is you. And reflections actually are just sort of notes along the way. Um, we were talking about having young people. I guess I'm at the other end of this, having just enjoyed my 85th. So here I go. I don't think anybody would argue with me when I say we, that would be every single person on this planet, are in a transformative moment. It's one of those wild and scary and deeply exciting opportunities for humanity to either step up and move to some new directions, or, as they say in poker, cash in the chips. Parenthetically, as you notice, I am a white American who speaks not only English, but American English. I apologize. I will try and do it slowly. If we were all in one place, you could say, wait a minute, but I will just try and go along and treat it more like poetry and not like prose. If you miss something, you think, it's all right, it'll probably come back again. Anyhow, we're in a transformative moment. And it's one of those times when just about everything we've taken for granted in the way the world is supposed to work isn't working that way anymore. That goes for countries, it goes for companies, it goes for families, it goes clear across the board. When things happen like that, it gets seriously scary. And one of the first things that happens almost automatically is that people rush around and look for the answer. And as we well know, there are a lot of people who are not only ready with answers, some of them even think they are the answer. That, for me, is the travesty of Trump. It's not so much that he was wrong, and it's very easy to blame him, but he and all of his compatriots have rushed in to fill the fear space with an answer. Now, it's easy to blame the Trumps of this world, and you can make your own list. But the Trumps of this world are there because the people like us have work to do. You can't just blame the Donald. He's been that way ever since. I spent a lot of time in New York, and he hadn't changed a bit. So what's new and different is that not just a little bit, but a whole lot is not the way we thought it should be, which makes it scary for sure. It makes it right field for the Trumps of this world to jump in and either provide the answer, that's somebody with a plan, don't trust them, or somebody who says they are the answer, trust them even less. But that they're there and that we're searching for answers is just kind of what we do. And the last time we went through something like this was at the end of World War II. And we went into that, and the world had an order, and we knew what it was. We had obviously all the empires, and the sun never set on the British Empire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. By the time we got done, that was all finished. And so what we did then, as you well know, is we invited some odd people, odd not in the sense of crazy, but I forget what the number was, to San Francisco and imagined what eventually became the United Nations. And it's worked, more or less, most of the time. But what we can't do now is what we did then, for a very simple reason. Back then, there were relatively few of us on this planet, and we didn't have to worry about all those odd people in odd places. As you well know, there are now 8 billion of us, plus or minus a few, and everybody's connected. So if we're going to have a gathering of humanity, somehow or another to reimagine the world we'd like to be in, and more importantly, get to work getting there. We're talking, as the title of this conference says, a conversation for 8 billion people. Now, the actual truth of the matter is that we've been practicing for this one for about 35 years. Are there other ways? Sure. But one way is what we've called open space. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the only way, but when you've done something for 35 years in hundreds of thousands of situations with millions of people, and the results are fairly predictable, it's not that that's the way to go, but it could be instructive in the moment. So the problem, of course, is that every sort of open space most of us have connected with have either been small groups or, occasionally we'd get to 2,000 or 3,000 people. But if you do the math, we don't have the time, energy, or spaces, to say nothing of the fact that we happen to have a plague at the moment and a few other things, to do open spaces around the world sufficient to get 8 billion people talking to each other. But maybe we can learn from what we've already done, not by applying it directly, but learn what has happened. Most of the open spaces we've done, as I say, have been small groups or sometimes 2,000 or 3,000 people. But I'd like to turn things on their head. Don't believe a word I'm saying. Think about it. If we start with the notion, not that we're going to do an open space, but rather actually believe that we are in open space, we're just doing it rather badly. So it's not about bringing open space to anyone or place or time. It's rather that we might help whoever do what we do naturally better. I thought. And how would we begin to lay the pathways for a gathering in whatever way that occurs? And the ways in which human beings connect are so infinite, we don't have to worry about that, I don't think, at the moment. I think part of it, and this is also standing stuff on his head, is forget about the answers. What about the question? The interesting thing to me is we get so infatuated with answers that we forget the question. And what is the question? what is question? Think about it. Question has a first part, quest. It's a journey. It's attractive. It sucks you in. So if the first thought that you might put in your head is, we're already in open space, we're just not doing it very well. And that's everybody. That's kids who are fighting street gangs, that's people in Congress. I mean, they all have their rules and regulations and so forth and so on. But the actual truth of the matter is, it's open space. It's a self-organizing system. That's where we are. And the funny thing is, the harder we try to control it, the less well it works. That's a different issue. So we're already there. Now, how do we focus attention in such a way that whatever connections that we as the 8 billion of us might have are actualized? I think it begins with the question. But it's a very special kind of question. It's a question so deep and so profound for which there is no answer. I mean, that kind of question is what, if you happen to be a scientist, getting the right question is the most exciting thing. Finding an answer is just, doing the math. So the question, the ultimate unanswerable question, which is so deep you can't even say it. And what's that? I don't know. That's the point. Just think of a question that's so deep, so profound, nobody could know an answer. Now, that will scare an awful lot of people. On the other hand, that's exactly the kind of thing that has challenged and motivated and collected us strange creatures called Homo sapiens to get together and really think. Now, there's some people who actually, sort of made a life work out of this, and they're called Quakers. And they have this wonderful phrase they call sitting the question. It doesn't mean answering it. It means just sitting, literally, and allow the question to expand your space. Those are their words, not mine. That's what questions do. So, turning everything on its head, it's not about bringing open space to anybody. It's about helping people to understand we're already there. We just are doing it rather badly. And it's not about providing the answers. It's about helping people experience such a deep and profound question that the space is infinitely open. And how you do that? Well, you don't do it. It's more about, I think, and my experiences, it's about being sensitively open to this particular moment. Scarier than hell. Exciting as hell. So when, as, or if you find yourself in this upside down world where the space is already open, just sort of cluttered up with things we don't need, and where the inviting part of getting people to seriously enter that space is the question for which there is no answer. Crazy as it seems, we're ready to go to work. Now, what could or should we be doing if we find ourselves in that space, that infinite space? that space of massive possibility where no person, black, white, indigo, or any, has ever tried before. Well, I can't tell you exactly step by step, but I can give you, I think, some pointers. Might even call them fundamental principles that you sort of keep in mind as we go along. I think you know what they are. First one, whoever comes is the right people. It's about invitation. It's about opening your eyes to who is there and understanding they're there because they care. It's that simple. A second one, whatever happens is the only thing that could have, which is to acknowledge that all of that should have beens, could have beens, might have beens really don't add up to very much. What is, is. This is heavy duty thought. But when you get to that place that you begin to experience the possibilities that are there and not the ones you wanted to be there, you see the opportunities that passed you by before. Whenever it starts is the right time. It's an amazing thing. For all the plans and policies and purposes, etc., nothing ever started on time. And the amount of sheer agony we have experienced in trying to be on time is ridiculous. More than that, anytime we're so obsessed with the right time, we miss the time, which is now. We get so stuck on what should be, we're blind to what is. And oh yes, wherever it happens is the right place. One of the interesting things is some people think of open space simply as whatever number of people sitting in a circle, creating a bulletin board, open the marketplace, etc. And that's true. But it's also true if you look at those great natural events, Tiananmen Square, Tahrir Square. Same thing. These swirling groups of people drawn together by the question so deep that nobody can answer. Can and does happen everywhere. And then there's a final one. When it's over, it's over. That sounds awful pessimistic. But the truth of the matter is, when something's over, something new can begin. There's never been a beginning without an ending. I mean, just to be blatantly obvious about it. So when it's over, yes. And that creates more space for us to be in, places to go. So with those principles in mind, not that these are things we should do, but just things that seem to happen. I think it's quite possible to imagine opening the space of our lives to whoever comes and acknowledge them. They could be black, white, indigo. They could be really militant, nasty people. They could be turtle doves. We can, at any given moment, understand that whatever happens is the only thing that could have. Not because we had a plan for it. That's just what happened. We can know that whenever it starts is the right time. We don't have to rent City Hall to make it right. And anytime we walk down the street or take a taxi cab or get on a subway or go out and sit by the bay or whatever, whenever it happens is wherever it happens is the right place. And when it's over, which is at once an acknowledgement of the limits of things and simultaneously the invitation for something new. Okay, my friends, just something to think about. Something to think about. In a way, if you just turn things upside down and understand that when we look for the answers, we're looking for the wrong thing, that makes our task easier. And if we stop worrying about getting people into open space and just recognize that they are, we can invite and open and welcome people to spaciousness anytime, anywhere, as often as you want to. Indeed, if you're not careful, and this, you really have to be careful, this could become a way of life. Now, is it all going to work? Who knows? Stay tuned. I think it's always worthwhile remembering that Homo sapiens is a species here on planet Earth. All species, like all things, have a beginning, middle, and end. There is no divine imprimatur that says that Homo sapiens has got to go on forever. It could be, experiment terminated. Thanks a lot, guys. Or it might not be. But it can be a moment of fulfillment for 8 billion people, starting with us. So I'm going to sign off. I'm going to drop in at odd points. And if you thought you were going to have a lecture on exactly how to do everything, I failed. But you have 2 days to get started on this and the rest of your life to enjoy it. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.